Thanks for joining us. The heck is today's date? October 8th mentor session. We're going to talk tonight about defending against Fury. I know we're probably all in a little bit of a different place with that. I think some of us have kind of worked it out a little bit, and I know others are still trying to catch up there. So I thought I would share what I've done to keep them out, and I'm sure we got a lot of other folks who have uh, some things to add as well. So I'm going to start. I'm trying to find my photos here. For some reason, they're not. Where I thought I put. Oh, I know why. Because on the wrong
User
page.
disconnected from your
Sorry about
channel.
that. Does everybody know where we're going here? So we're on the mentor page. Click on photos, click on albums, and then mentor class October 8th. I'll put the link in the chat here. I always do. And we can get started. So one of the things I think that changed a little bit when Fury came out was that the layout of your base was actually as important as your turrets and your guard. Didn't quite used to be that way. I mean, there were some obvious things you didn't want to make mistakes on, but with the Fury, and I learned this the very first time I got hit by them. It's pretty important not to allow them a place to escape, because they can very readily make it past your guard one time. But a lot of them have a hard time making it past twice. So if you want to bring up this first slide, which is a picture of my base and base planner, can see that the way that my base is laid out, they have to go past my guard once as they're coming up the channel, and then they have this hard 180-degree turn where they basically have to go back through it again. So if you're getting hit with a Fury fleet that has scatter guns on it, it's pretty likely that they're not going to take out
User joined your channel.
much of your guard on the way by. You got a lot of walls they have to fight through, and so when they come around that back corner, your guard is still there. So if you have a layout where you have sort of an island center, in the center, and they can go all the way around it. If you think for a minute, if this
User joined your
strip of
channel.
land wasn't here, that's at about 6 o'clock on my guard, they would cruise right past your guard on that side, go around the other side of your island, and then they could kill your outpost. So you really want to cut it off and make sure they got to go back through your guard before they can get to your outpost. If you're going to go to the next slide, this is just sort of this is the zoomed out view of my base, so you can see kind of how I have my guard laid out. You'll notice my turrets are repairing. I got hit right before I took these screenshots. So, but you see how I have my guard laid out there. So I have the Retribution first, and then I have two Vanquishers here. I will show you the builds on all of these in just a second. And then at the back, I've got a Zoe, which is not refit correctly yet. It still needs some tweaking, but it sits back there, and it hammers the Fury with missiles. Oddly enough, I don't understand why. Maybe Lube or somebody else can explain. The Fury have 15,000 penetrating deflection, yet missiles seem to do a lot of damage to them. So if you don't have a proto Nemesis, or I'm sorry, a proto Mastodon or a Mastodon or a Zoe or a Rhino at the back of your base, you might want to think about throwing one in there, because it does seem to do a lot of damage. And then the last hull is my Gamma, which sits there. That's all loaded up with D110s, and that's sort of the, that kind of cleans up the mess as they come around the corner. And then you can see, just to point out kind of where my turrets are. Up front here, I have a cluster of 5 turrets. There's 3 blunderbuss in there, and then 1 Drac Scattergun and 1 Basilisk. The reason that I have those up there is because Fury hulls are weak against scatter and ballistic before they get bloodlust. So you want to put them up front. So if you'll notice, I don't have much out front of my channel. So the reason that I did that is because, which is a little counter probably to the way a lot of folks, but you don't want to give them an easy bloodlust, right? So if they want to get up anywhere near bloodlust on my base, they got to go all the way around the outside,
User
starting all
joined
the
your
way at the
channel.
back, before they get in there. And so just a reminder, to get bloodlust on a Fury, 20 hit, you need to get 20 kills. So they have to kill 20 things in your base before they can get a bloodlust. So, and when they get a bloodlust, they get some buffs against ballistic and scatter that make it a little less effective. So you want to hit them with that early before they get up that bloodlust, so you can weaken them. Fury are the kind of ships where you need to take every opportunity to damage them as they're coming in, because you really got to chip them away as they're going through your channel. Otherwise, they're gonna make it through. So if you want to go to the next slide, I've shown these before, but I just want to show real quick again the turrets that I have out front. This is my blunderbuss turret. I have the X
User
defense
joined your
panels
channel.
on it because a lot of folks are still running Fury with Vendetta, so I wanted to slow down, or the length. I wanted to lengthen the length of time that turret would stay alive. And I put one radioactive turret on there because obviously a lot of guys one radioactive armor. A lot of guys are running launchers on their Fury, so I figured that would help it stay alive a little bit longer against launchers. And then the two specials on there are the depleted uranium shells, which really up the damage quite a bit, and then the supercharged DM rails, which give it a chance to do a critical hit, and then I have the offensive transformer on that to boost the damage. This is in the wrong order, but that's okay. This is my Cold Snap turret. Cold Snap sit at the back. They're pretty important. They actually lower the defenses of some of the holes as they come through. So if you have ships like Vendetta coming through your base, which, again, a lot of people are running 3 Fury, 2 Vendetta fleets, and they have the Vendetta have that aura that they put out that improves their buffs. This actually takes that down. So when the Cold Snap fires on them and that aura drops, they become much more vulnerable to all other types of damage. So your executioners are going to do more damage, your guard's going to do more damage, and then this also does explosive damage at the same time. So that's why I have the Eruption Pyre and the Lithium Shells, which up that damage, and again I have the offensive transformer on that. If you want to go to the next slide, this is my Drax Scatter turret. Again, loaded up for explosive. This one has the defensive transformer on it to try and keep it alive a little bit longer. Lots of armor to the permacrete, and then that's pretty much all that would fit left on there. It's basically top down on power, but this turret stays alive for a long time, and it'll whack them with a lot of scatter damage. Good. The next turret in the slide, this one actually is super important for Fury because the biggest advantage that Fury have is they get through your channel very quickly. They are very fast, especially when they overload. When they take a certain amount of damage and they overload, they get a big combat speed boost. So what that means is they can get through your channel quickly and minimize damage because they're not in there that long. So you got to slow them down. So this glacial turret lays out an ice field that will really slow them down as they're coming through your channel, and it makes a big difference. I'll show you the battle log at the end of these slides from the hit that I just got from one of the PNLS guys, Judge Peps. The only thing that saved me was that turret. It stayed alive at the very end, and it slowed his Vendetta down, getting through my channel just enough that I was able to kill him before he got my outpost. So this thing literally saved my base's life. So if you don't have a glacial and you have the BP, I suggest you get it in right away. And if you don't have the BP, look for the first opportunity to get it because it's a must-have turret in my opinion. Next slide. This is the concussive Gatling gun. Fury are weak against concussive. That's one of the 3 damage types that they're weak against: ballistic, corrosive, and concussive. So you want to put this turret on them where it can fire down the whole length of your channel. I have the concussive upgrade special, and I put pinch panels on it just because there was nothing else to put on it that was any good. And then the offensive transformer, which ups the damage. This really chews away at them especially as it winds up. The more it hits, the more it winds up, the faster it reloads. And again, every little bit of damage you can put on these when they're coming through your channel makes a huge difference because you get to whittle them away slowly. You're not gonna blow them up. All right, so moving on, the next slides are my guard. I wanted to run through this and I'll just give you a little bit of insight as to why I made some of the choices I made. One thing worth noting, not all of these ships have been fully refit yet. They're all some of them are in various stages of being refit to go in my guard. I'll call out things that probably need to be tweaked as I see them, just so you guys know. So this is the retribution that sits at the very front of my base. It's got all shockwave plates on it, and the reason I did that is because there are a lot of there's a lot of guys that will run the launchers that are on this one, the Cyclone launchers, on their basers as a prep fleet, because the Cyclone does very little damage to your buildings on the way in, and they get in and they can prep your guard out. I just saw it done the other day, and if you put that shockwave plate on there, it really dampens the damage and it makes it very hard for them to do any meaningful prep. Here's an example of where I need a refit. This still has the can't think of what it's called, the battery on it that doesn't activate unless it's in an aura, so it's probably not really doing much for me in my base guard right now. But then I have the 2 of the launcher superchargers on there and atomic targeting, so all that is to boost the damage. It has speed system on it because this is a repurposed baser ship, but I actually kind of like having it on there because if you have to drive, it's good to have speed system on there. And then the weaponry, I have 3 Cyclones. I have 2 of the big launchers that go on the retribution on there, and then that little thing in the middle is a concussive Gatling gun. I put that on there actually previously so that I could deal with Fury in base guard, but it actually works pretty well against. I'm sorry, so I could deal with Hellrace in base guards, but it actually does pretty decent damage against the Fury. So, and it also helps keep subs out if they're trying to get in your base. So I left it on there. The next ship in my guard, this right now is the absolute anchor of my guard fleet. If any of you have watched my base get hit by Fury, 5 Fury fleets get to this ship and just die. Why is that? Because I have 2 lockdown rockets on it. And the lockdowns, what they do is they dramatically drop combat speed. And when they hit this and they get hit by those rockets and slows them down, and then there are 5 concussive Gatling guns on this, plus they're getting hit with the concussive Gatling gun from the retribution before it, plus all those launchers, plus the launchers on my next Vanquisher, and they can't move, the fleet just disintegrates, and it happens fast. They do not last long when they get underneath of this. The armor's wrong because I built these before I understood what 100% defensive handicap meant. So they do have deflection on them, so it's not completely wasted, but probably
User
should
joined
have
your channel.
shockwave plates on there. That'll get refitted at some point in time. The specials, I have agility system, which is very important on your base guard when you're getting hit by Fury, because if you've noticed, when the Fury overload, they stun your ships and your base turrets. So you got to get that agility, and if you don't have agility 4, or use agility 3, or if you don't have that, you can use just the regular stun resist. But it's very important because the stun lasts for I think 3 seconds, and when your guard is not firing for 3 seconds, that's a really long time for them to get through. I have the combustion system 2, which speeds up the damage, or speeds up the projectiles from the rockets and increases the splash. I have strike warheads, which is for the concussive Gatling gun. It ups the concussive damage. Countermeasures
User
loaders,
was
which
moved to your channel.
increases the reload rate, and then cluster warheads, which
User
also increases
disconnected
the
from your
reload
channel.
rate on those rockets. So when those Fury hit that thing, they really die. So if you can get something like this in your base guard, it will really change the outcome of battles for you. If you have a Vanquisher, I recommend getting it in there right away. Use either a Vanquisher or a Retribution. You need something that's going to stay alive for a long time. I originally had it on a Vendetta, and it just didn't have the health to stay alive as long as it needed to. So try and use a Vanquisher. If you can't use a Vanquisher, use a Retribution. The next ship is my Gamma. This is another one that probably needs to be refit a little bit. It's an older build, but it still works pretty well. It has all, as I said, it has all D110s on it. Three bulkhead armors and 3 of the D5U armors, which have they don't have deflection, but they have that where it reduces the amount of damage all the types of by a fixed amount. I think it's
8%, something like that.
Is that what it is? Okay.
At R15.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
So
8.1.
yeah. At R15, yeah. So this actually holds up reasonably well. Has heavy plating on it. The Gamma does not have the defensive handicap, so heavy plating works. It has a nuke accelerator to extend the length, countermeasures loaders to extend the reload. It also has autoloader 2 on it, so the reload is really good. And then again, it has that agility 4 for the stun resist. This is my other Vanquisher. It's all loaded up with launchers. It does have two. It has 2 anti-mortars on it, which frankly get overloaded pretty quickly. If I ever get a minute, I'm going to refit that and just make them other launchers. And then the specials are basically the same as what I have on the other Vanquisher, except they're all launcher oriented. Again, the armor's wrong. It needs to be refit. I didn't put my Zoe build in here because honestly, it was a repurposed baser that I just threw in there because it seemed to work. But what I did put in here, I actually got through Manic Man, who got it from Judge Peps, a tip that torrent missiles work really well against Furies. So I threw up sort of a representative build of what you might want to do if you have either a Proto-Nemesis or I keep saying Proto-Nemesis, Proto-Mastodon or a Mastodon or a Rhino or a Zoe that you can throw at the back. And if you put these torrent missiles on it, they do a lot of damage. You can see up under the damage section, you're looking at 55,685 of penetrating damage and 12,516 of radioactive damage. So, you know, that'll put out some firepower against them. You may want to consider looking at something like that for your guard. It's pretty light. I think it only weighs like 5,000 tons, so it leaves a lot of room for other stuff. I only put D2 armor on there. It's only for basically for the defensive buffs because really this is going to sit at the back, and if they get to it, you're probably dead anyway. But you do get the defensive boost from there. There's 3 X panels in case they have Vendetta in their fleet, and then the other 2 are the corrosive boost armors. Although I'm not sure that those corrosive armors are really worth it because it only gives you like 15.4%. So you maybe either look at the heavier armor or possibly just go with all X armor and cross your fingers. I just wanted to show how this base design and this guard holds up against a really solid hit. So about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours ago, Judge Peps from PNLS stopped by for some cookies. And those 5 turrets that I showed you out front of my base, those 3 blunderbuss and the 2 Drac scatter guns, he prepped all of those out with Tiger Sharks. You can see that as you scroll through these battle logs here. He prepped all those out. So all that firepower was gone from my base. He came in afterwards with 3 Fury and 2 Vendetta with a legendary crew on. He had the demo squad crew on it. So he prepped me 4 times. He hit me with probably the best fleet going in the game right now, and he had a legendary crew on. And he did, with all that prep, he did manage to get 58% on my base, but he failed to get my outpost. You know, and I mean, if you consider all the effort he put into breaking my base and what a good hitter he is, I was pretty pleased with that result. I would have preferred not for him, for him to not get the 50%, and some of those tweaks that I talked about along the way are what's going to make that difference. But he died at the end of the day. He did not get my outpost, and he didn't get my medals. So I was pretty happy with that outcome. So that's pretty much all I have for the past through. So I'm gonna ask some of the other folks on the mentor team if they have anything they want to add, any tricks that they might have discovered that I haven't figured out yet. Lube, you got anything you want to share with everybody?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched a lot of it. I think the important part is, creating that hook or that wall there to where people can't just drive to the back of your base. They have to drive through your guard. Even with my setup, I feel like I've got a pretty strong base. But at the end of the day, sometimes them having to drive through my guard is what saves my butt. So that's definitely something you need to put into play. I'm not totally sold on the design I have, but I'm very, very happy with it. I know, the turrets I've got, the guard I've got definitely tremendously helps those things. Also the retros I got. But I have the same layout in my little base. And I really worked on turret placement. I have a Zoe Rhino, or just a regular Rhino, a regular Enforcer, 8 V2H, and a Mastodon and a Nova Storm with Judgment Mortars on it. That's my guard, and I tell you what, I have picked up more medals in the last 2 weeks since I've done that than I have ever before. And all I really changed was the layout. I went from a layout I'd had for a year or two to this new layout. And like I said, I had to put the turrets different. You can't look at my layout and go, I don't have those turrets. Well, that's understandable.
User
Look at
joined
what
your
you
channel.
got and how to maximize those the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's about the damage types, right? So think about the damage types that damage Fury, ballistic, scatter, concussive, and deploy those the best way that you can. You know, you don't want to load. One of the things, let me tell you, it hurt my soul because I spent, you know, time, tokens, coins, getting that Harlock Citadel ready in my base, and I put it in there, and I sculled it, and I was all proud of it, and I was eating, you know, fleets up, and then all of a sudden the Fury came out, and it was worthless. And believe me, I did not want to toss that thing onto the scrap heap, but I had to. It just wasn't doing it for me. So, you know, really think about the kinds of damage that the hull that's going to hit you is vulnerable against, and then think about what you need then in your base to put that kind of damage on it. The one thing I will say, and I agree with Lube, I don't love my layout either. In fact, every base I hit or every peak I see, I'm always looking for a better one. One of the flaws that I don't like about mine is it really jams your guard in together. So when Peps hit me today, he had Judgment Mortars on those Vendetta, and you know, he really lit my guard up. I mean, I thought he was going to beat me. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The only thing that survived to the last Fury was the Gamma, and then he was left with 2 Vendetta, which fortunately my turrets took care of on the way in. But it was really close. I mean, he was coming around the last bend there, and when he died, so you know, that's the only thing I don't like about mine. If I could find a better layout that gave my guard a little bit more breathing room, I would prefer it. But I haven't seen one yet that I'm sold on. So the other thing I wanted to mention while I'm thinking of it, I watched a guy hit Carlos yesterday, and if you'll notice on my base, you might wonder why I have all my stuff kind of spread out on the bottom of the rim here. I've got all these labs and warehouses kind of spread all around. One of the things you have to be careful with Fury, because they have such a good if you have the ones with scatter guns on them, they can sneak in without doing a lot of damage to buildings. And if they've got Vendetta outside, what they'll do is they'll park the Vendetta somewhere where they're not going to hit any buildings and they're only going to hit your guard. And then they'll drive the Fury in, and they can prep your guard out, come out, repair, come back in, and kill you without having a guard in. So I spread everything around here, so I gave them nowhere kind of to hide the Vendetta, so that they're going to bubble me when they're trying to prep. So you might want to think, I mean, again, there's a lot to think about. There's so much going on. I mean, guys have suicide fleets that they send in with launchers on them, you know, to prep out your guard. There's a lot to deal with, but I just wanted to explain the rationale why I had that laid out like that, because I'm trying to set it up so it makes it much harder for them to prep that way without bubbling me.
Hey, Prime, I got a question.
Yeah.
Actually, I got 3, but the first one is I'm looking at your base. I'm looking at your base layout, and I'm looking at the way you have your fleet placed and the way they're pointed. Does pointing it a different direction, like you have them pointed, versus laying horizontal against your walls there, is that a better way to do that?
So here's why they are where they are. And the angle, frankly, I like it for aesthetic reasons only. I don't think there's any real benefit. But the reason why they're not next to my wall is because if they were jammed up next to the wall there, you might be able to reach them from outside with wall crawl and a retribution. So I had to set them back from the wall a little bit. It's only 4 tiles there, right? So if you count, I've got the outside rim, then the 2 in the channel, and then the one on the inside. So it's only 4. So I had to back them up to make sure that they couldn't be prepped out. So that's why they're placed farther away from the wall.
Yeah.
Also, so if you think about it, you know, they're gonna, because the scatter gun is a, you know, is an area weapon, you know, pulling back, it give the spread is a little wider at the back, so you're not necessarily getting that concentrated fire that you are when you're up close. So, but primarily it was anti-prep.
And plus, I got the same base layout as you do. I had my ships up against the wall, and somebody would bring a Fury in and have one launcher on there to shoot over top of the walls. Then they had their Vendettas just following along the channel on the outside, and they were just hammering my guard with the mortars.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. That's the way Carlos got prepped early yesterday. Same thing. So that's why I put all that crap around the outside of my base. So if they do that, they're gonna bubble me in addition to taking out my guard.
So then my next question is the thermal that's on there. There's 80 thermal, I think, is what the Retribution and the Vendettas have. Is that plenty of thermal there in your channel to keep them from coming around?
Yeah, it just squeaks the other side. I should have taken a screenshot of that. I didn't think about it. It just kind of scrapes the wall on the other side. I was very careful not to go back too far so that the thermal didn't reach, but it does get across. The other thing is, even if it didn't, they can't get around the end because the gamma's tucked in that corner there, and the thermal would see them before they got around. So, but it does reach to the other side. Yeah.
So that's all I had on that. My next question is your turrets. The glacial turret that you had, what was that special that you had on that, and where do you get that special?
That one drops from the Drac base. It's oh boy.
User disconnected.
About the
I'm sorry,
encoder on it.
Actually drops from the uranium bases, and I forget what the heck it's called. Frontline Platform ZU. It boosts radioactive reload.
Cool. Is that still available out there if you're hitting them?
I don't know. I assume anybody been hitting Drac uranium bases lately and getting BP drops. I got a Ghost Crawler shard, the last one I hit, but I have all the other ones, so I would assume they're still dropping.
They're still dropping, just depending random.
Yeah, I think they slowed the drop rate down. I mean, at least that I felt like they did, because I was hitting when I first started hitting them, I got a BP pretty much every time, and then all of a sudden I wasn't getting hardly any, even gamma shards or anything. So I would guess they slowed it down, but they do still drop. I think it's 2 pieces.
I guess you should throw a lucky bastard on there. I guess maybe now.
Lucky Bastard does not work in Drac uranium bases, so don't.
Okay, well never mind.
Yeah,
That's
it doesn't. I thought the same thing when they first came out. I tried it, didn't work. I put a ticket in, and they were like, "Yeah, read the post in the forum. It tells you it doesn't work." I was like, "Oh."
Okay, well that saves me from
That
wasting
doesn't work.
one. Now, when you get, just out of curiosity, not to cut you off, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
On the uranium basis, are those blueprint drops? Is it pieces or is it actual?
It's pieces. So my recollection is all of the specials that drop are in 2 pieces.
That's correct.
Yeah, and then the gamma drops 10. You have to get 10 shards for a gamma.
So it kind of mimics the old Drac basis where you had to
Yeah.
get X.
Yep, exactly. Anybody else have anything they want to add? We got a lot of folks on with some pretty darn good bases. So
Smooth.
anybody?
You're one
Yeah.
of those guys that always has that methodical base, and also why I'm kind of pegging you, Smooth, is your base is totally different than this design that a lot of people have been adapting.
Well, it's basically the same thing. It's just because, I mean, when you look at it, it's the same thing. I mean, in general, it's
It
the
is,
same
just
type
a
of
different
design where you have to go back through it. But I mean, I was actually thinking about switching to that since I just got leveled. But you know, I'm just trying to figure out what change I need to make next, and I need to prepare for actually with the new raid coming up and the new ship coming out. So
How'd they get you?
oh, it was a double hit. They took out my ship. I need to make it so that my ships are further back in.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
the
it's
problem.
funny. I mean, that's what I was saying before. There's so many I mean, there's so many ways to, to break a base. I mean, if you really are determined to get in, you're probably going to get in because, especially with the Cyclone launchers, I mean, you can sail in there and not hardly damage any buildings at all, and prep out the guard. And a lot of people are doing that and using Vendetta on the outside. And Judge Peps was telling me that he uses the judgment mortars on his, which I didn't even notice this until he mentioned it, because mine have all coax on them, but the judgment mortar actually does almost double the damage to ships that the coax does. The coax does more building damage, but the judgment does way more ship damage. I never even checked, so I'm going to refit mine with judgments on them, because getting rid of the guard is 90% of the battle. You can kill the buildings at your leisure. So if that's another tip, if you have Vendetta and you're struggling against killing guards, you might want to consider, even if you only put maybe half judgment mortars or something. I'm telling you, it made a huge difference. I watched my Vanquisher sink, and I was like, oh my! I mean, it went down. It lasted half the time it does against ships with
User
coax
joined
on
your
it. So
channel.
that's another tip for attacking. You might want to think about doing that.
Yeah, you have to. The judgment mortar is the only thing is you have to watch your weight, I think.
Yeah, it is a little heavier. I think it's 550 tons, and I don't remember what I think the coax is like 400 and change. Let me check. I can look real quick.
It's 400.
400. Okay, so it is. So there's definitely a weight. There's definitely a weight consideration, because it is like 150 tons heavier. So maybe you don't want to load them up with judgment. But although I don't know about you guys, but my baser I run 3 Fury and 2 Vendetta, and I got, I don't know, 3,500 tons left to play with. So I have plenty of room to up the weight on my Vendetta if I need to. What other questions or tips, or who else is on that's got a really solid base that wants to chime in with something?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks like you have your dock way out in the corner where you can hit it. Is there a reason for that?
You know what? Not really. There's just no better place to put it. Like, there really isn't. Anywhere else I put it, it's too close to the outside and it can be sniped. I just decided let it die. I can afford 50 cents if somebody wants to kill it. But it's not. I agree. It's not the best location. I almost may consider just sticking it off in a corner somewhere outside my base. But I just shoved it there for now. It was up in the front next to the turrets, but what I found was it was just making it easier for them to splash my guard, because it was kind of sticking out on the side there. So I pulled it back in, and I just put it back there. But I agree, it's not the best spot for it. I just don't really care.
Well, plus it's the same thing that happens even if you put it in back right up against the island. Once they're hitting that with the mortars and all, your island is getting hit with all the splash. And
well, that's the problem. If I put it anywhere around my island, first of all, I can't put it in the front, obviously, because the guard fleet's there. And on any of the other sides, it's snipeable from outside. So if they start raining mortars on it, it's going to splash my island. And I'd rather spend 50 cents to repair my dock than have to repair my whole base.
Now, can I make a minor suggestion?
I would love to hear it.
For some of the smaller guys, if you do have the Gore Saber, with the lockdown rockets, you could armor that up pretty good for explosive and radioactive, because it gets a bonus. I'm not looking at the stats exactly, but it does help with the Furies.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't even think about that. The only well, I guess it wouldn't really matter now. I was thinking when I had my Harlock in, I was going to say it's a flagship only, but I don't have a Harlock in anymore, so it wouldn't make any difference. Yeah, that's a good point, and that gets that whole fleet overload too. So, like, for example, if you had that Mastodon or something at the back firing missiles at it, and
User joined your channel.
Gore Saber overloaded, it would make a heck of a mess. Maybe that's a good tip.
On your Omega, do you have the railgun on it?
Yeah. Again, that's one that I was going back and forth. I thought about refitting that with concussive reciprocators, but you know, I try not to get too carried away against one specific type of ship, because all of a sudden, you know, a new baser comes out, or even next week we're getting another one that's got different weaknesses. So I decided to hang on to the ballistic and leave it there the way that it was, because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to swing too far in one direction or the other. If I was going to change anything in my guard, I think I would probably find some room for a few more anti-mortars, because I don't have enough, and when those mortars start raining down, it does make kind of a mess in my base. So that's probably the one thing I would change on my guard if I.
Wouldn't it be better to use the bypass chain gun too, which is gives you like 3,000 damage per shots?
You know, I don't know. I
User
haven't
joined
even
your
looked at it.
channel.
Maybe. Again, I built this a while ago. Actually, I built this, I think, I refitted, I should say, right when the Vendetta and Revenge started coming out. So I don't know. I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe it would be better. Yeah. I don't. Which one did you say? Bypass chain gun?
Yeah, you get reactive damage too.
Yeah. The only thing is the bypass doesn't have the value that it used to, because all the hulls don't have defensive stats anymore. They have deflection. So before, the bypass was a big deal, but now it's not as much, because you're getting the deflection damage stat, and not the deflection defensive stat, and not the percentages like we used to have. I'm looking at it now. So yeah, it does 4134 damage and weighs 445. So let me look at what the
Yeah,
rail.
that's at 3, but 2 is a little, weighs a little less.
Yeah, well, I mean, the railgun's 315, so, and it does the heck does it do for damage? Oh yeah, it does. You're right, that does way more damage. Yeah, you know what? That's like a no-brainer. That I need to refit that. That's not even close. Good
And
tip
they got
there.
the same distance too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, there you go. Learn something new every day. Yeah, that's what I said. My guard's not perfect. It really, the anchor of my guard is that is that Vanquisher right now. I actually want to put some lockdowns on some of my other ships too. I'm probably going to put a couple. I'm probably going to replace the 2 Drac anti-mortars on this Vanquisher that I have with 2 more lockdowns. That way, when they're coming around the corner there, it'll slow them down again if they get past that first one. And then I may even put one on my Gamma.
Yeah, I'm planning to put lockdown on mine too. I only got 1 so far.
Yeah, they're pretty much a must right now.
I can give you this. You'll kind of correlate the defense posture and the abilities of the Gore Saber for base defense. What you're talking about with the lockdown rockets. The way I had this set up, it's a plus 39% armor abilities. My evade is 70, ballistic is 79%, explosive 80, penetrating 81, radioactive is 63, 67 tactical distance. Rocket reload on it for the Gore Saber, since it gets bonus, is 370%. I was set up. So
Yeah, you should post your build to that, because some people might want to steal that. That sounds like it's a pretty solid defensive hull.
And they can tweak it any way they like to, and they probably boost it up even more.
Well, that's good. That's a good tip, especially because that's a hull that a lot of people probably have. Okay, so what else?
User joined your channel.
What else? Does anybody have anything else they want to share? If not, we can segue into the Q&A. We've been answering all the questions already. So, but if anybody has any other questions, or if anybody has anything else they want to share, the only thing else I wanted to mention before we wrap up, too, is if you haven't checked forums or some of the other Facebook pages, you might want to, about the raid. The upcoming raid, there are changes from last raid. It is not going to be the same targets. They're similar, but they made a lot of changes to them. A lot of changes. They are very different. So that gone is that that shockwave that used to happen when the ships would die that damaged everything. It's now
Oh, thank
more
God.
well, yeah, don't thank God just yet. It's now more torpedo based than it was before, which, you know, I mean, it kind of sucks because I set mine up with all explosive damage because that's what they told us, and now that's all gone. So, and I don't have enough concussive defense on mine, so I'm probably going to have to grind a little bit harder this raid than I did the last one. But if you haven't checked out the changes, I would look. Actually, the new sub campaign that they have out now for the Phantom Hellwraith, those targets are supposed to be very close to what's going to be in the raid. So you have kind of an idea of what you're going to be facing. They do have thermal, which the old ones did not. So, you know, all that stealth that we put on them, no good anymore. The one thing I do like, they got rid of that random cavitator on them. The big hulks do shoot the cavitator shells, but the random cavitators on the mini ships are gone. So that's kind of nice. But what this really means is, whereas last raid it was most beneficial to do the targets with one Hellwraith, now you'll be back to using a full fleet because it's all point-to-point weapons and not that area damage. So you'll want to change tactics. I would definitely watch the video. There's tons of videos of the targets out there. Watch the videos. Test the Phantom Warfare campaign out with your subs so you get an idea how they work. And, you know, like I said, read the boards, read forums, read the Facebook pages that you're members of, and check it out because there will be changes. It will likely be overall a little bit easier from what I'm hearing. Different, but a little bit easier from a difficulty perspective. So hopefully it won't be quite as rough and as much of a grind as the last one was. Maybe we'll all be able to get some more prizes this time than we did last time. So. Do we have any more questions or anything? If not, I think we can probably wrap up. We'll give everybody a little bit of extra time back in their night.
If I could just ask one question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly new with the group, and I just wondered if on our 001 or on one of our pages, if we could add a ship building page, because there's so many good fleets you guys have out there, and I'm really trying to improve what I have.
Hey, whichever current admin's on, let's make sure he's on that page. With that, we are going to wrap up the recording. Do want to thank everybody for coming. We've ended up with around 35 people here. It seems to be about the average. I definitely like that because you don't have to watch this afterwards. You get it right here. Also, you get the option of the Q&A afterwards. You get the option of asking questions during and also giving your input. You know, everybody's got ideas. And I talked to people in this game. I was talking to somebody from one of the other groups we're hitting, and he's asking me about my build. And I said, no, we have a strict rule against sharing builds and all that stuff. And, you know, I said, we talk about them and we discuss them for weeks, and that's why we covet them. That's why we don't share them with outside of this mafia. He goes, what do you mean? And I said, you know, I kind of explained the mentor class. He goes, wow. So I'm guessing that you only have to fit something once or twice. I said, I fit one time usually and maybe tweak it down the road, but I haven't had to do a major refit in a long time because I screwed up the first time. And it's all because of not having to build a baser before the raid is done, not having to have a baser even in that next week. Just build the holes, put a motor on it, so on and so forth. But thank you for coming. We'll get into the Q&A and closing the recording down.